Okay, starting with your hydro handle here. This switch right here is your main on-off to turn on and off your main spray. So this controls your ball valves. This would control your right-hand boom up and down. This was the foam marker. Most of the sprayers from Reddit equipment, we've switched this to be your guidance and gauge. And on the new sprayers, this is now the guidance and gauge. Moving over to your right-hand side console, think of this as your cruise control. The further you turn this to the right, the faster it goes. So you can set the speed that you want to go at down the field, fine tune it. Then when you come out of your headlands, you can push it ahead. And if you wanted to go at 18 mile an hour, you can then fine tune it so you're going whatever speed you'd like to go. If you guys are getting close to getting stuck, if you turn this all the way this way, it slows you down, but it also gives you more torque. So just remember that. It's something to think about. If you are getting close to getting stuck, turn that down. That way you get more torque. Moving over to the right, this is going to look different than probably some of your sprayers because we've moved some of the switches with Aim Command Pro and Aim Command Flex. So this sprayer only has Aim Command on it. This right here, if you flip it to the A, essentially fires up your Aim Command, turns on your pump. In the O position, it's off. Manual position essentially just gets rid of your two separate preset pressures that you have over here. This button here would increase and decrease your PSI that you want to spray at. With Aim Command, your pressure is always constant. So if you want to spray at 42 PSI, you can fine tune 42 PSI here. From there, you could have number 1 set to 25 PSI, and you could flop between the two of them throughout the field. This right here, if you have a 100-foot sprayer, you'd only have 6 boom sections. With 120, you have 7. When they're all pushed ahead, they're all on. Sectional control will take over. So normal operation, you'd have all these switches on. The only time you might not have one of these switches on is if with a 100-foot sprayer, if you folded in the outside tips to get down to 60, or on the 120-foot sprayer, if you folded in the outside tips to spray at 90 or at 60, you would have to shut off these as well. This is your auto fold right here. So with auto fold, with a 120-foot boom sprayer, it's available. With your engine running, rev up your engine to about 1100 RPM, press and hold this button ahead, and it'll pick it up out of the cradle and it'll fold out your sprayer boom completely, bring it down to its last known height, and engage your auto boom, which is your height control. To fold it up, you do the exact same thing. You press and hold it the opposite direction, it lifts up the main mast, it turns off your auto boom, folds it in, brings it into the cradle, and sets it into the cradle for you. The only thing, if you are running a Pro 700 or a Pro 600, with autofold, if you do it at an idle, you will get some warnings on your Pro 700. Just rev it up to about 1100 RPM and they will go away. If you have a 100-foot boom sprayer, this switch should be here, but it is called easy fold, not autofold. So you'd have to pick up your booms out of your cradle and then it would fold out that way. This switch right here, this is your fence row nozzles. In the center, they're off. And then down here, you can see this is how you would fold in your outside tips if you wanted to make a 120-foot sprayer into a 90-foot or a 60-foot right here. This is your main mast up and down right here. One thing that a lot of people don't know about their main mast switch on a 120-foot boom sprayer, you can, when you're in the field, if you double tap it twice up with your auto boom on, it'll lift it up to the top as high as it'll go, the whole boom, main rack and outside. So then you could drive across the road, drive across the fence line. Then when you get to the other side of the field, you double tap it down twice, it engages all your auto boom sensors. So this 120-foot boom sprayer would have 5 auto boom sensors, 2 on the right, 2 on the left, and 1 in the center. If you double tapped it down twice, it would set them all and lower it down to the height you want. Moving back, this switch right here, this is your sparge, which is Case IH's word for agitation. So sparge increase or decrease. Sparge valve I'll point out underneath, but it'll go fully open and fully close in 8 seconds, right there. And then this button right here, the button that no one ever presses, but it always gets pressed, is your power switch. This, I don't know, somehow we bump it. If this is shut off, it kills everything on your right-hand side console. So usually the guy will call me and say, I can't spray. First thing I always ask him is, can you lift and lower your booms on the right and left-hand side? He says, that wasn't my problem, I can't spray. Well, if you can't lift and lower your booms, this switch is off. It kills all the power to your right-hand side console. It has to be ahead. The only reason it's in here is for safety. If someone's working on the boom of the sprayer, you can turn it off. That way you can't move it. But always make sure that that's pushed ahead prior to phoning, because that's usually the problem. That's your park brake switch. Along with your park brake's tied to your ladder. So park brake's on, ladder's down, park brake's off, ladder's up. The park brake and the ladder will lift up at an idle, but if you look in the ops manual, it recommends having the engine revved up to about 1100 RPM to fully let the brakes release so they don't drag. So if you are driving around your yard or in the shed, rev it up to about 1100 RPM. That'll let the brakes fully release. Throttle's located right here. And then underneath your right-hand side console, this is where you would extend your axles or retract your axles right here. When you are doing that, you're moving slowly forward, less than 5 miles an hour, revved up, high idle, and you press and hold it, the axles come out. They don't all come out at once. There's nothing inside the cab to tell us when they're all out. You have to look out your right and left window and look in your mirrors and make sure that all your wheels are in line with each other. And some guys say to help them come out easier, they turn. Some guys just put them out, driving straight ahead. Some guys put them out and leave them out, and they'll never bring them in. So that's where that switch is. Other than that, if you hear me talk throughout the day, this is what we refer to in Case IH world as your A-post. So that's where your speed is displayed. And a lot of guys, this is your urea gauge right here. So it's about 3/4 full. When it gets down to there, that is your 10% full right there. That's when you should start to fill it up again. So located up front here, this is your radar gun. This is where your speed comes from on your A-post. On later models of software, you can change your speed source to GPS. On the older software, you only had the choice to have radar. So your radar gun points down, it picks up any movement on the ground. If you guys are sitting still and you see movement or speed on your A-post, don't be alarmed. It picks up anything that's moving. So if you are sitting in standing crop and it sees the crop moving, it will pick it up on here and display it on the A-post. For anybody in here that is running a Raven monitor and you guys are trying to spray standing still or do a self-test speed, anytime a Raven monitor sees speed from your radar, it kills your self-test speed that you entered in. So that's something guys will call and say, I can't spray standing still or test my nozzles. It keeps canceling out. You either have to come down here, move to a middle of a road, or come down here and unplug your radar gun so that you guys can do a self-test speed. This isn't a problem with the Pro 700 or the Pro 600 monitor, only with Raven monitors it'll pick that up. Behind you, you got your water separator fuel filter here. Up top here, you can prime it here, and you got a bleed screw. So if you had to change that filter, you can prime it and bleed the air out there. Behind it, this is your DEF module. The reason why we point this out is there's a couple filters here. There's a thimble filter up here that in the ops manual talks about changing that yearly. And then there's another filter cartridge right here that's at 3,600 RPM or 3,600 hours. I would say you would change both of them yearly just with the DEF. That's what the Saskatoon shop has been telling people. I'm not sure if that's the same down here, but we've been telling people change both those filters yearly. You have your charcoal filter for your cab right here. It doesn't suck the air from down here. If you follow the hose, it goes straight up to the top front of your cab. That's where it sucks its air for, the cab. And charcoal filters can't be cleaned, so just have to replace them yearly. As well, you got your tie down hooks, or what we probably most use them for is pulling out, which if you look in the ops manual, we don't recommend it, but it happens. I'll go through at the back on where they say to pull out the sprayer if you do get stuck. On the front, this is your knee bushings right here, and there's grease nipples here and one here. So there's 3 here, and there's 2 here. If you look in the ops manual, I believe they say those are 50 hours. We're telling people to grease them daily now, just so you guys don't have to go through your knee bushings and get them replaced as often. So grease them daily there. So when your axles slide out, you could set this stop right here. There's 4 stops, there's 1 in each corner. You can move this stop to any one of these holes. What that'll do is it will only allow the wheels to go out so far. So if you had a sprayer trailer or something, you wanted the wheels only to go out so far and stop so you could spray and drive on your sprayer trailer, you could set that. In some wet years, what guys have done is they set their front and rear wheels staggered so they're not running in the same tracks. And that's how they did it, just by moving your axle stops different from the front to the rear. Also, if you notice inside your spring here, there's a hydraulic cylinder. That's the option called active suspension. Since we have a solid frame on the case sprayer, our frame does not twist. So if we are coming into an area where one wheel comes off the ground at the front, active suspension's job is to keep the front end in contact with the ground at all times. So if this wheel comes off the ground and starts spinning, it senses it, it collapses the hydraulic cylinder on the opposite front wheel to bring the front end down to the ground for contact at all times. There's a couple other grease nipples. This one right here, there's one, and there's going to be one over on the other end of the steering cylinder as well. If you guys are running the sprayer and you do hear when you're engage your auto guidance and you get close to the line and you can hear a clunking, majority of the time these were never greased or not greased enough and the balls are worn out in there, and that's where you get that clunking in the cab, is when you're coming onto your guidance line, you're getting really close within 10 feet and you can start to hear it, a clunk or a chatter coming from underneath the cab. That's where it's usually coming from. You need to replace the balls in there. This valve right here, that valve right there is your manual sparge valve.
Just keep the light on it.
Right up there. Only reason we point that out is for if you guys ever do blow a product line, no one ever thinks to shut that off. So you blow a product line, product's flowing out of your sprayer. First thing everybody does is they come here and they just shut this off. But then it still runs out because it siphons through your sparge system, through your agitation system, and gets out to the back of your sprayer. So you blow a product line, you shut this off, and then you also go and shut off your manual sparge valve. Otherwise it'll drain out. The only other time you'd ever shut off your manual sparge valve is if you look up here at your sprayer station, it says sparge, but no one ever knows where that is. That's your sparge valve. Where it says sparge here, it means the valve in between your cab and your tank. So on 2016, they moved that sparge valve because it was hard to get to. They moved it down underneath so it's easier to get to. In normal operation, it's always in line with the hose. So your pump station. Quick thing to remember, and the easiest thing to remember, is gray to spray. So if everything with the flow points to something gray or lines up with gray, it's a normal spray operation. These switches here, if you notice, they are S1 and S2, and they correlate to up here on the map as well. Valves are all numbered as well, which correlates up here as well. So another question we always get is, guys get done with their sprayer station, everything's turned on here, sprayer won't move. If this switch is on, it not only turns on the light here, it powers up your pump station. It also then tells the cab there's someone working at the pump station. So if you go up into the cab with this switch left on, you go to drive it, park brake will come off, you can't drive it. It will not move because it thinks someone is down here at the pump station. So Normal operation, switches are all down, everything's gray to spray. If we turn this on, we power up the pump station when we're filling, then we can turn our pump to manual right here, and our pump will run to agitate as we're filling up. Then we can increase or decrease our engine RPM from here. If we leave this switch on as well, you can't control the pump from the cab. It won't auto rate. So these have to be down in normal operation. The last thing, there's a red button here, the emergency stop. It must be the most exciting button to press on the sprayer because every year at crop production shows someone presses the button for some reason, and someone will probably press the button on your guys' sprayer at one time. If this button gets pressed in, it's designed for emergency. Something happens down here, it kills the engine. But what also will happen is you forget, you go up to the cab, you can turn your engine over, it'll crank and crank and crank and crank and will not fire. So it has to be out. If you do notice that you are cranking and it isn't firing, if you look at your front corner post, it gives you a code 12,000 and something. And then if you look in your ops manual and find that code, it tells you emergency stop button. So all these, gray to spray, this button out, that one down, those two down. That's everything on the pump station. On 4430s and 40s, they put the booster pegs here. So it's exactly what they're named. You can boost from here, or you can actually run your sprayer pump from there. You can pull 12 volts off of here to run your sprayer or your spray pump on your trailer. You can run off of here as well. 3340s, I believe they were there. 3320s, they weren't there. So that's something they just added. You can add these on, bring them across, so you have power on this side. If anybody's running a 4420 sprayer here, inside the lid of the toolbox is where you'll find this, your spray map. So they just moved, it used to be in there. All the grease nipples that I talked about on the front of the sprayer are on the rear of the sprayer too, on the knee bushings, on the top as well. Everything you grease daily at the front, grease at the back as well. So I touched on auto fold in the cab. This right here on a 120-foot sprayer, this is your linkage for your auto fold, right here. There's linkages like this at each one of the bends. But this one right here, if you notice when we're fully folded out, it sits right behind the tire. So this area right here gets plugged with mud. If you can't move the linkage, the potentiometer doesn't know what position the boom is in, and that's where you get faults on your auto fold. If you guys are having an auto fold problem, first thing I would do is clean that out before you called service to see if that fixes the problem, because it has been packed in there so much before with mud that we haven't been able to let the linkage move to the potentiometer. Also, there was another thing I talked about auto fold was auto boom. Auto boom is your height control. So there's ultrasonic sensors and there is wheel sensors. This machine has two of them, so it's called Ultra Glide. So that's an ultrasonic sensor. So if you have that, you have Ultra Glide. If you don't have those sensors, you have Power Glide. The majority of people say their auto boom doesn't work. The next question for me always is, how did you adjust it? What are you adjusting? Usually people don't know. So there's speed and sensitivity. Sensitivity picks up what's coming to you, and speed drives it back down. So if you have them set wrong, they'll just fight each other all day. So you have to know how to set it. There's no number I can tell you guys right now that'll work for your sprayer, because it depends on your driving habits. There's people that spray at 22 mile an hour, there's people that spray at 12 mile an hour. They're gonna have different settings for their auto boom. If you are gonna spray at, say, 18 to 20 mile an hour when you're sitting still and your boom is folded out, you'll wanna see it almost vibrating. That way you know that it'll keep up with you as you're driving. But just remember, sensitivity drives the boom up, speed drives it back down. So if your speed's too high, it'll drive past your sensitivity set height, then sensitivity picks up and it drives it back up, and pretty soon they just fight each other throughout the field all day. And where you really see this is if guys are doing desiccation in standing wheat. So that when the boom dips down into the wheat, what happens is that boom breakaway breaks back. When it breaks back, then it opens up the spring on the boom breakaway. From there, the wheat heads come in, it closes on it, it rips out the 20-some plants, they fall down behind a couple nozzles, and you no longer have 72 nozzles spraying, you have 70 hitting the ground, 2 of them are hitting the wheat. So in that case, if you don't want to adjust your auto boom correctly, and you want to do that, put a piece of heater hose over top of those springs so they no longer can open up and they can't grab the crop. 120-foot boom sprayers, you'll have 3 filters. This guy looks after this whole boom. This one over here looks after that complete boom. And this little guy here I think this got changed in 2016. 2016 and prior had the little filter here. If you guys have Aim Command, if you have Aim Command Pro or Aim Command Flex, you guys run an 80 mesh filter. Usually with sprayers, there's 2 sets of filters come with it, but 50 mesh is for conventional spraying, and 80 mesh is for using Aim Command Pro, or Aim Command Flex. So there's 3 filters on the back, then I'll show you the filter on the other side when we get there. Anybody running a 100-foot sprayer, there's going to be a boom filter beside every single boom valve. So on a 100-foot sprayer, you have 6 boom valves. You're going to have 6 little filters beside each boom valve. And they're all going to be, if you have Aim Command, 80 mesh. If you have conventional sprayer without pulsing nozzles, you're going to be a 50 mesh. This is just an Aim Command sprayer. So you'll have these boxes at the back. If you guys had an Aim Command Pro sprayer, you'd have 1 box. And if you had an Aim Command Flex sprayer, you just have a node up here. Why I'm pointing this out is it doesn't matter if you have Aim Command Pro, or Aim Command Flex, there's fuses hidden back here that aren't usually in the ops manual. So this sprayer right here, for anybody that has Aim Command, there is a master and 2 slave modules back here with fuses in them. The master looks after booms 1, 2, and 3. The slave looks after 4, 5, and 6, and the second slave looks after number 7. So if you guys lose one sprayer boom that isn't spraying, I would come back here and check the fuses back here first. Also, if you have Aim Command Pro, you're going to have 10 amp blade fuses back here for each boom section as well. Anybody with Aim Command Flex, you're going to have 6 fuses back here as well, blade type fuses hidden at the top. So no matter what Aim Command system you have fuses back here to check. Okay, so this only goes for the Aim Command customers and Aim Command Pro customers. Anybody running a new 2017, we'll go through this upstairs, it's going to be a little bit different. This is a capstan pulsing nozzle. So if it's not pulsing, it's not garbage. That's what we're trying to explain here. You can test this. If you put your multimeter here to here, you can test the coil. It should be 21 to 23 ohms of resistance. We'll tell you if this coil is good. If it's not pulsing, another thing you can do, pair of pliers, put it on here, and you can tear this apart. Inside of here, you have a plunger. Sometimes what we use to winterize the sprayer will make this plunger stick in, and it won't pulse anymore. It'll gum it up. So you can take this plunger out, clean it up, and put it back in. If you guys notice, if you walk by your sprayer and one of the nozzles is dripping, it's usually this plunger right here. You can buy the plunger separately. You don't have to buy the whole thing. Another thing we ran into a couple years ago is guys not winterizing their sprayer properly. So they take their sprayer out. First time of the year they try to spray, a lot of the nozzles don't pulse. The problem is there was water that got in behind and pushed this little seal out, and it didn't give it enough room for it to pulse anymore. So instead of him throwing away a bunch of these, he just had to replace the poppets. You can buy them separately and it's a lot cheaper. 21 to 23 ohms of resistance across the coil will tell you that your coil's good, and you can tear it apart and fix it. Another oil check that gets missed a lot is that right there. This is your gear increaser. Your gear increaser is designed to speed up your engine RPM, to increase the RPM going to your hydraulic pump so you have better hydraulics at an idle. So with the gear increaser, it needs oil changed on it. A lot of guys don't like changing the oil themselves because it's a pain, because the only way to fill it is through the breather hose. So whatever oil you put in, it burps back at you and you get it on you. So what you can do is, with that sight glass, you can put a T in there, a pipe T, move your sight glass to the end, and then put the T going straight up. From there, you can stand up in between those pumps a 1 liter jug of oil, and you can fill it through there then. It's a lot easier than filling through the top through the breather. Some of the machines get it from PDI, some of them don't. So it's something we put on at Redhead, but it's nothing fancy, it's just a pipe T. So a couple things just on this side of the sprayer, not a lot going on, but I wanted to talk about this guy right here. That's not an on-off valve, that's a throttling valve. So with Aim Command Pro and Aim Command Flex, it always stays in line with the hose. There's two different size of holes drilled in this ball in here, and it's only time you'd ever use it for conventional spraying, going low rate to high rate. But anybody with Aim Command Pro, or Aim Command Flex, it always stays in that position. It's not a shut-off valve. Lots of guys will turn that thinking it's a shut-off valve. It's a throttling valve. Ahead of it, this guy right here is your flow meter. If you read the ops manual now states to clean it daily. I'm pretty sure there's probably none of us in this room that have ever cleaned a flow meter. But if you want to clean it, you pull it off, you run warm water through it, and that cleans it. There has been a couple guys who tried to service a flow meter once, and usually that ended up with them having to buy a new one. So you can tear a flow meter apart, but getting them back together and getting the clearance right usually doesn't work. So if you have a flow meter problem, usually you're going to be replacing it. On every flow meter, this is a great example, there should be a tag hanging right here with your flow meter kel on there. The flow meter kel with Raven is pulses per 10 gallons. That flow meter kel, the monitor, the rate controller needs to know that. So whatever numbers on your flow meter needs to be inputted into your rate controller. So if you guys ever do change your flow meter, you have to change the kel number in the monitor. And there should be a tag on here, but it's obviously been removed, fell off, something else. So for all the Aim Command Pro people in the crowd that have the small monitor, they're doing 72 nozzle shutoff, Aim Command Pro, you guys also need to verify that your flow meter kel number matches from your Pro 700 rate controller to your Aim Command Pro monitor. They both need to have the same flow meter kel in there. It just makes the system work properly. Inside the battery box here, there is more hidden fuses here as well that people aren't aware of. The last places that there's fuses is underneath the buddy seat or the instructor seat inside the cab is where there's other fuses. Last, there's one more filter here. This one is your pre-filter. So 120 foot has 4 filters, 1 here, 3 at the back. If you had 100 foot, you'd have 1 here and 6 going across, so you'd have 7 filters. And majority of the 4430 sprayers and later have the battery disconnect on here. So with that, that is the walk around.